Have you ever looked at someone's career and thought, wow, they were just in the right place at the right time? Maybe it was that they landed the promotion. Maybe they got the opportunity that everyone else wanted. Maybe they're suddenly a senior leader, an EVP, or a CEO of some huge company. And from the outside, it can look like everything just lined up for them.
I think we all have, right? And part of that is because we usually enter someone else's story. At the moment, everyone starts paying attention. We see the promotion, we see the announcement. We don't necessarily see what positioned that person to be considered in the first place.
Recently, I came across a story about Raj Subramaniam. I am really probably butchering that name right now, but please forgive me. I read it, I didn't hear it pronounced. But he's the CEO of FedEx. And his story made me think about this completely differently. In 1991, Raj was finishing graduate school and looking for work. His roommate had been offered an interview with FedEx, but he'd already decided to move back to India. Raj overheard this conversation and then asked for the recruiter's number, called FedEx himself, and essentially just said, would you consider looking at my resume? And they did. He got the interview, he got the job. And decades later, he became CEO of FedEx.
So there really was a chance element there, right? He couldn't have planned for his roommate to turn down an interview, but he also could have heard that conversation and done absolutely nothing with it.
Yeah, and that's the distinction. Getting access to the interview was chance. What he did with that opportunity wasn't. And that's what I want to talk about today. So, welcome back to the Professionals Recovery Room. I'm Michelle,
And I'm Steph.
and we're talking about luck, timing, and why some people seem to be ready when an opportunity shows up. Because after years of working inside organizations, interviewing hundreds of people, watching promotions, reorganizations, leadership changes, I absolutely believe timing matters. But timing alone rarely explains someone's career.
I think it's important to acknowledge that up front because the other extreme is pretending careers are completely merit based. We both know talented people who have been overlooked, and we've both seen people benefit from circumstances that happen to work in their favor.
Absolutely. Luck is real. Markets change, companies restructure, leaders leave. Someone happens to recommend your name. You meet somebody at exactly the right moment. We don't control all of that, but we do have some influence over what happens when one of those moments reaches us.
So there are really two variables here. There's the opportunity itself, which may be outside of your control, and then there's your ability to recognize it and respond to it, which you have more influence over.
Because Raj still had to make that call. And after he got the job, there were decades between that first opportunity of becoming CEO. And that's the part we don't see when we look at someone's career from the outside. We see the moment everyone noticed them, but we don't see everything that made them ready for it. And there's actually research behind this. One of my favorite concepts in career psychology is called planned happenstance. Kathleen Mitchell, Al Levin, and John Crumboltz wrote about it in 1999. And the basic idea challenges this belief that successful careers are built by creating the perfect plan and then following it. Unexpected events matter a lot.
Which doesn't mean planning is useless. It means a plan can't account for a new industry emerging, a company restructuring, meeting someone you didn't expect to meet, or even discovering that you're good at something you never planned to do.
Yes, exactly. And I love a plan. But if you show me my actual career path 20 years ago, Coca Cola, Amazon, Carvana, eventually starting my own business, I wouldn't have predicted that. Planned happenstance isn't saying don't plan. It's saying don't become so attached to that plan that you miss what you couldn't have planned. The framework focuses on 5 qualities that help people navigate unexpected opportunities. So that's curiosity, persistence, flexibility, optimism, and a willingness to take reasonable risks. And immediately I think about Raj. He hears about an interview that wasn't meant for him. He could have thought, well, that's his opportunity. Instead, he asked for the number.
There's a professional lesson in that beyond his specific story. Sometimes we disqualify ourselves before anyone else has the chance to. They didn't ask me. I'm not quite ready. That's probably meant for somebody with more experience. Raj didn't know whether FedEx would say yes. He just gave them the opportunity to.
A tiny decision at the time. That's what fascinates me. We expect career defining moments to feel career defining, but they usually don't. They just look like a conversation, maybe a project, an introduction, a role that you're not sure that you're ready for. And then sometimes you can realize years later, oh, that thing, it changed everything.
And once we know the outcome, it's easy to go back and give every one of those moments more meaning than it actually had at the time.
And there's research on that too. Psychologist Bischoff's 1975 work on what became known as hindsight bias showed that once we know how something turned out, it becomes easy to see that outcome as more predictable than it actually was. So today we hear Raj, CEO of FedEx, and his career has a storyline. In 1991, he was a graduate student making a phone call. He didn't know the ending.
That's an important perspective. When you're in the middle of your own career, it's easy to look at someone else's path backward and think it was strategic all along, while yours feels uncertain because you're still living it forward.
Yes, we're looking at somebody else's story after all the dots have been connected and comparing it to our own while all the dots are still scattered everywhere.
There's another part of opportunity that I think matters here too, though. You can be prepared, but somebody still has to know you're there.
This is where relationships become really interesting. In 1973, sociologist Mark Granovetter published The Strength of Weak Ties. So, the basic idea is that people outside of our closest circle can expose us to information and opportunities that we wouldn't have otherwise encountered. And in 2022, a massive LinkedIn experiment published in Science involved about 20 million people over 5 years provided causal evidence that weaker professional connections can increase job mobility, particularly moderately weak ties.
Which makes sense when you think about how information moves. The people we work with every day often know the same people and hear about the same things we do. Someone who moved to another company or works in a completely different part of the organization has access to a different set of information.
Yeah, former coworkers, someone you met at an event, a person in another department, someone you collaborated with once. They're connected to people and opportunities outside your normal circle. And I like this because it makes networking sound a lot less awful.
Yeah, no kidding. And less transactional, right? Because you're not meeting someone immediately thinking, what can this person do for my career? You're building a professional community over time.
Staying connected, being genuinely interested in people, help people, have conversations when you don't need anything. Because sometimes an opportunity begins with somebody saying, you know who would be really great for this? And then your name comes to mind.
And for your name to come to mind, they usually need some experience of you. They know what you're good at, they trust how you work. There's something associated with your reputation.
This is where my experience inside organizations really changed my perspective. I used to think promotions worked the way most of us are taught. So you work hard, you do a great job, and somebody eventually notices. And sometimes that is true. But organizations don't promote people simply because they deserve a promotion. They usually promote someone because the organization has a need and that person is ready to meet it.
And that explains why someone can be excellent at their current job and still not be the obvious person for the next one. But the organization is also asking whether the person has demonstrated what the next role actually requires.
Business may suddenly need someone who can lead through change or build a team or manage conflict or take over a project that went sideways. And the question really becomes, who have we already seen do something like this? That's why promotion day can look sudden from the outside. But usually the reputation behind it wasn't built that day.
Opportunity can be sudden. The readiness usually isn't.
Yes, the opportunity can be sudden. The readiness usually isn't.
Although I think there's an important caveat there. You can be ready and still not get picked. Maybe your manager doesn't advocate for you. Maybe leadership doesn't know what you've been doing. Sometimes it's simply not a healthy organization.
And readiness does not guarantee opportunity. People get overlooked. Bad managers exist, bias exists, politics exists. Sometimes you really are in the wrong organization at the wrong time. But there are things that you can do to make it easier for people to understand what you're capable of. And one of those is visibility.
I'd separate visibility from self promotion. Visibility can simply mean the people making decisions understand the impact that you're having.
And it's communicating what problems you're solving, it's sharing progress, it's participating outside your immediate bubble. And people will know how you think or how you work because your work can't always speak for itself. You've got to give it some context.
And then if the organization suddenly needs someone with that capability, they're not discovering you for the first time. There's already evidence that they've seen.
Exactly. And I've seen this happen. A leader leaves, new project starts, reorg, and somebody's asking, who can take this? Who can take this? And we sit in a room as leaders and we try to parse through everybody that we have on our list. But that's why it looks like luck from the outside. We're seeing the opportunity, we're not seeing the preparation.
So let's make this practical. We can't tell somebody how to make the perfect opportunity appear next Tuesday, but we can tell them how to increase the chances that they're ready when something does change.
And I think there are four things. So, first, I would say stay curious. Learn outside your job description. Understand the business. Ask good questions. Pay attention to what's changing. That ties directly back to that planned happenstance. Curiosity helps you notice possibilities you weren't specifically looking for. And then, second, build relationships before you need them. Not transactional networking. You're not looking to get something out of someone, but real relationships. That weak ties research gives us a pretty good reason not to disappear into our own little professional circle.
But on to that, don't only build upward. Peers, people in other functions, other departments, former coworkers, those relationships can become incredibly valuable as everyone's careers evolve.
Absolutely. And then third, take smaller opportunities seriously. The project that nobody thinks is glamorous, maybe you're covering a meeting, maybe you're helping another team member, maybe you're even learning something new. Not every small opportunity becomes important, but sometimes that's where somebody first sees what you can do. I can't tell you how much visibility I got by taking on new projects that no one else was ready for, but I had my hand up already. And then fourth, build where you're going, not just where you are. So ask yourself, if the opportunity I want showed up tomorrow, what would it require from me that I haven't built yet? Maybe that's confidence for you. Maybe it's your communication. Maybe you need more experience leading people, understanding the business beyond your function, whatever it is. Don't wait for the opportunity to start building it.
And I think that keeps this from becoming just work harder and eventually you'll get rewarded. That's not what we're saying. It's more intentional than that. What capabilities am I building? What relationships am I maintaining? And am I paying attention to what's changing? I got to make sure and ask myself these questions, right? I mean, am I giving myself opportunities to use those things now?
Because you can't control all the variables in your career. That luck we talked about, it matters. Timing matters. Access matters. Sometimes someone else gets a break and you didn't. But that doesn't make the years you're spending learning, building relationships, doing good work, and becoming better at what you do meaningless. You don't know yet which of those things you're going to need later.
Which brings us right back to Raj. He couldn't have known that overhearing his roommate's conversation would matter 35 years later. All he knew was that there was an opportunity in front of him.
That's exactly why I wanted to start with him. He wasn't making the first move in a CEO strategy. He was looking for a job. He saw an opening and he thought, maybe I should call. That's it. And I think all of us have those moments. Most won't necessarily lead to becoming CEO of FedEx,
That's probably okay.
but they can change the direction of a career. The conversation you almost didn't have, the roles that you weren't sure you should apply for, the person you decided to stay in touch with. And maybe years later, somebody looks at you and says, wow, you were really in the right place at the right time. And maybe they'll be right. Maybe you were. But you'll know there was another part of the story. You were ready enough to do something when that moment arrived. You were prepared.
And maybe that's the balance. Don't convince yourself you can control everything, but don't underestimate how much you can prepare for what you can't control.
I think that's exactly it. Have a direction, keep building, stay open, and don't assume that because you can't see where something is leading, it isn't leading anywhere. Sometimes the dots only connect when you're looking backward.
Absolutely. Thanks for spending some time with us. And maybe this week, pay attention to one opportunity you might normally dismiss as too small to matter.
Until next time, keep your eyes open. You never know which ordinary moment might turn out to be the right place at exactly the right time.